It's been a while, but hey, it's Lauren here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I decided I would talk about the anime that I've been watching lately because I haven't done it in a while. Like as of right now, I'm pretty sure I'm just pushing out like studying abroad content, and that's great and awesome, but I've been slacking on my typical like nerd book content, and I'm trying to get back on that. And I figured I would start with anime because I have consistently been watching anime and I've not consistently been reading books. That's a very bad thing. But I decided I would talk to you guys about what I've been watching lately, and yeah, that's pretty much it. All of these things, by the way, I would recommend. So without further ado, let's just hop right into the video. The first thing I want to talk about in this mighty book of mine is what? So the first thing I want to talk about is Ace of the Diamond. And of course, if you know me, you know I'm a sucker for sports anime. Hold on, that's the oven. Cinnamon rolls are in the oven, so we're good to go. But the first anime I wanted to talk about was Ace of the Diamond. Of course, it's a sports anime. If you know me at all, you know I am obsessed with sports animes. And I can't exactly explain why, because I am a book nerd and a nerd of many things. I have played sports before, but I was never like a sports head. But something about sports anime, it just seems to bring together everything that's great about life and put it into a show with sweaty teenage boys in like a sport that I've never heard of or like know much about before watching the sport, and I become obsessed with it for months. So that's what happened with Ace of the Diamond. I watched it right after my phone was stolen in Paris, and I became obsessed with it because, I don't know, something about Asian Sawamura Asian struggles were amazing. He's a protagonist that is unlike a lot of the other protagonists that you see in sports animes because, for example, in animes like Haikyuu, Kuroko no Basket, even like Blue Lock to a certain extent, like the protagonist usually is part of a team that is trash. They come up in a team that's trash compared to their own ability, and that ends up becoming like their whole arc, like making their team be able to make it to a certain standard. But that's not necessarily the case with Ace of the Diamond. Sawamura Asian is one of the least experienced and least skilled players, at least in the beginning, and he is surrounded by all these really well acclimated and competent teammates that all help him grow in their own ways by just like being the best version of themselves that they can possibly be for the team. And it's a really interesting dynamic to watch because as Asian is going through like this really tumultuous struggle to become the ace of his team, that by the way, that's what it's about. Let me actually start with that. Okay, so the entire story is about Sawamura trying to become the ace of Seido High School, which is one of the powerhouse baseball schools in Japan. However, they haven't made it to Koshien Nationals in 6 years. So the entire goal is for one, Asian to become the ace, and for another to bring the team to Nationals. And that's basically what the entire thing is focused on. Again, Sawamura is kind of like this underdog character, so it's not going to be easy to get there. He's not one of those characters that has like an OP skill necessarily. He has a certain talent, a knack for what they call it, an idiosyncronous pitch, like a pitch that moves on its own, basically. But he has no skill or control over it, so he basically has that certain talent that he needs to make blossom in its own way. And while he's trying to do that, he's not just trying to become the ace unrivaled. There is already an ace on the team who is a third year. There's someone within his own year that has incredibly powerful pitchers and becomes one of his biggest rivals within the show. And I guess like, again, his journey of growth is really interesting to watch because there are so many like other upperclassmen that are incredibly competent, and for one, it brings comedic stuff to it because we can see Sawamura struggle so much. But for another, like, we can appreciate his growth while also still getting those hype moments by seeing the other members of the team thrive, which I feel like isn't necessarily the same thing in other sports animes. A lot of times, even if they do give a character moment to shine, you don't truly appreciate it as much, whereas as opposed to Ace of the Diamond, I feel like I can sincerely say that I loved and enjoyed every single character on that show, similar to Haikyuu, but I think they just give a lot more spotlight to the side characters in that. So I think Ace of the Diamond is awesome, and I think like a lot of other people say about the show, it does give a really accurate portrayal of sports and what that journey is like, because it isn't always oh, just because we're the most skilled or because like we have all these odds stacked for us, that doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna get the win. The team as a whole, as well as Sawamura, they go through their ups and downs, and I think it's just a really beautiful show to watch. Like, I never expected it to take me by surprise like that, but it did. It was amazing, and people recommended me watching it so often. Like, people were like, oh, you watch Haikyuu? Watch Ace of the Diamond, that shit is fire. And I was like, yeah, That's great. However, I don't know what it is about it. I think the first episode just reminded me so much of old school anime, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be super into this as a result of that, but I think it's amazing. Don't listen to what motherfuckers have to say to you about the pacing of the show. The pacing is perfect. Look, the pacing is exactly what it needs to be. As long as you're willing to like go through the tough moments with the team, just like you're willing to go through tough moments in life, like I think it's an amazing show to watch. So 10 out of 10 would recommend. It's one of my favorites that I've watched recently. Another one that I've watched recently, which I think is really funny, another sports anime, is called Birdie Wing. In short, it is a lesbian golf anime. I feel like it's not getting enough hype this season, or in like the last, it was like 2 seasons ago as well when the first part of season 1 came out. That show is phenomenal. Let me tell you, the story is about this girl named Eve, and basically she has no memory of her parents whatsoever, and she is being raised by this woman who found her along with a few other orphans. And the whole idea is that she's making money for her family, her found family, using golf. And apparently there's like this whole underground golf world, and it's super amazing and cool and definitely out of this world. When you watch the show, you have to understand, you need to use suspension of disbelief, because you just don't, a lot of the things in the show simply don't make sense in reality. But this is an anime, so you gotta fully embrace that aspect of the show. And they do a really good job utilizing the suspense of disbelief as such that you don't really get really annoyed by everything that happens. It seems like it's completely out of the realm of possibility, because we're aware of the scope and the world in which this is happening. So I think it's freaking amazing. And yeah, she also has a rival as well. Her rival is someone who is raised by these rich prodigy golf players, and she has all the resources and the tools in order to like make it big. However, she doesn't necessarily have to drive until she ends up meeting Eve, who motivates her to become better. There's a lot of drama, ups and downs. You'd be surprised by the kind of drama and beef that goes down in the show. Like honestly, like there's gang violence, like girl, there's love triangles and shit. Anyways, that's going into spoilers. I think it's freaking amazing. I think it's a great show to turn your brain off and also to get some of that LGBTQ plus action. So yeah, if you're looking for something like that to watch during like Pride Month or post Pride Month, because we always support the community, I say watch Birdie Wing. I think it's entirely worth your time. Now, the next anime I watched during this season, I would say, is Hell's Paradise. It got a lot of hype before going into spring 2023. But as it's gone on, like after the first 3 episodes, I feel like the quality has lacked a bit. Before I go into that, I feel like most people know what it is, but I will summarize it. Basically, this dude named Gabimaru, he is trying to make his way back to his wife after he was imprisoned for trying to like protect her in their way of life. So he's been imprisoned, he didn't think he'd ever see her again. Then he's offered this opportunity by his executioner, saying that, hey, oh, the executioner is hot, by the way, I just want to put that out there. By this executioner who says that, hey, if you help us find the elixir of life that the emperor wants, you get to have any wish that you want granted. And he's like, all I want to do is see my wife again, so count me in, shit. And he was in, and that's basically what the whole show is about. The paradise itself in which they're trying to find the elixir is actually not a paradise. It's this hellscape mixed up with a ton of different religions, and the lore of it is explained more in the show. I say it's worth a watch. However, I will say, like, it is overhyped. Judging from the show, I can't speak for the manga because I've just watched the show, but I would say it was supposed to be part of the dark trio of anime. That's what a lot of people said. Like, they put it on levels of JJK and then also Chainsaw Man, so I was expecting a lot from it. But I will say, like, in terms of storytelling, I just don't think it's nearly as suspenseful or groundbreaking as those other 2 shows were. And they're all made by the same studio, MAPPA, so you would expect, like, that same level of dedication to production and output. Like, you would expect that same dedication, but you don't get it from Hell's Paradise. I'm not even just knocking the animation. I feel like some story points don't hit as hard, in part because of the animation, but also just, like, I don't think it's as level story-wise compared to Chainsaw Man and JJK. I think the suspense and characters are handled a lot better on those shows, because so far, like, I feel like I don't necessarily care as much about what happens to any of the characters of this show, save for one, and people know who I'm talking about because that backstory was freaking amazing. The way it was executed was super well. Hell's Paradise, as of right now, doesn't really have characters that make you want to watch them as much for me personally, and because of that, I'm not as interested in the show. And in terms of characters as well, I think there's also just not as much development, I would say, when it comes to the characters, save for the 2, like, the executioner, I forgot her name, but she got excellent amount of development in the beginning of the story, and so got Gabimaru. But I would say, like, that's more development in terms of, like, them coming to terms of what they plan to do on the island, as opposed to, like, them changing inherently in any certain way. Gabimaru, you could say arguably that he is developing by like getting the lessons from his wife. You'll understand when you watch the show. Maybe I shouldn't go into depth into analysis. The whole point is I feel like the character development isn't as much there because the whole thing of the story is basically for the characters to go onto this island and then solve the mystery that is causing people to disappear and have ish happen to them that y'all will probably see when you watch the show. There isn't necessarily any skill development that you would see from a typical protagonist. Yeah, none of that is there yet. That's all I'll say. And that is why I'm not necessarily interested at the moment. However, it's definitely worth a watch, so I would highly recommend. Another anime that no one will be surprised to hear me say, unless of course you aren't keeping up with the shows this season, that is Oshinoko. Oshinoko. It is an amazing show. Amazing. And it's basically, I can't even talk too much about it because I feel like the more you talk about it, the more, like, it's one of those shows you just gotta hop in and then just like watch it and see what's going on. Like, it's better to just go in blind. You know what I'm saying? All I can say is that it's a show that follows the idol and entertainment industry in Japan specifically, but it really talks about like worldview, entertainment industry in my opinion. And I personally, I feel like I've learned a lot and I've been held in suspense a lot while watching this show. Like, it's definitely like beat all of my expectations. Arguably the best show of the season. That is your sign. Go ahead, watch it. It is freaking amazing. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Another show that I think is pretty suspenseful and it also surprised me was, let's see, what's the name of the show? It's one of those really long light novel, like webtoon-like titles. I think it's Why is Reliana in the Duke's Mansion? Yes, I believe that's the title. If not, like the text or image is probably next to me in some way or shape or form. That show is amazing. Basically follows the protagonist Reliana, who has been isekai'd into this world by being pushed off of a building. So instead of it being truck kun, it's actually by mysterious trainer pushing you off at the ledge kun. So she falls to her death and she finds herself in the novel that she has read before, and it follows the protagonist who eventually ends up becoming the love interest, and you know, like the pairing happens between her and the Duke. However, that does not happen after she has been isekai'd into the world because Reliana realizes that, look, her character is supposed to be folded within like the first few chapters. She's supposed to be killed by her own fiance. So she finds a way to slip out of that marriage and then become entangled with the Duke instead in order to survive. However, it leads to complications, love, suspense, murder plots. This show has it all. It's really amazing, I would say. I think the one thing is really lacking in, however, is animation quality. I'll be honest, I don't know if it's because it's a webtoon or it just doesn't have as much of a readership, though I feel like it does have enough of a readership if it got anime. For some reason or another, it doesn't really have the financial backing to have good animation, so a lot of the images can sometimes feel like panel-like. However, I will say the story is well worth the watch or the read if you don't feel like watching it, but I would say it's well worth consuming either way. So I would highly recommend it if you're looking for something suspenseful, incredibly romantic, and has a slightly yandere character in there who I won't say, but you'll probably realize who I'm talking about as soon as you watch the show. I would say definitely watch it. It's amazing and totally worth it. And then finally, the show I'm going to talk about that is also a big surprise to me this season was Skip and Loafer. Skip and Loafer is an amazing, wholesome show. It gives me like the warm hug vibes that Comey Can't Communicate sometimes gave me, in a sense where like we basically just see a ton of characters interact and they all have like their own little things going on. Like it's a slice of life, but it's not one of those annoying slice of lives that are purely focused on romance and then they ruin the entire story because they're trying to draw out the romance as much as possible. It's one of the stories that followed like the beats and comforts of life, and it gives you like those steady beats of a good story while still not overwhelming you with too much emotion that sometimes slice of life animes can do. It's like the right amount of emotion. It feels like a warm hug, a warm blanket, instead of like the rushing of all the high school angst that you would normally see in an anime like this. And it basically follows this character named Mitsumi, and she is from the countryside. She is an amazing, wholesome character who really just wants to do the best for her hometown. So she wants to get into politics so she can help her hometown in any way, help boost population and resources for where she's from in Japan, because I think that's a problem that I was not aware of, at least in this world. Anyways, that's her goal, and in order to do that, she decides to go to high school in Tokyo. She applied, managed to get in. It's one of the best schools in the city. So she goes there. Her first day does not go as well as she plans, but luckily she ends up meeting this really nice, sweet, kind, popular, cool boy, and they end up becoming friends to the surprise of her as well as everyone. And yeah, from there, like they end up meeting a ton of other people in their class. I don't even know, like there are just so many like interesting, intriguing, well worth watching characters. And I will say one of the episodes brought tears to my eyes. I know from other people like multiple episodes have brought tears to their eyes, but there's one specifically that was about burnout, and y'all know what I'm talking about if you watch the show, but that really just brought something out in me. I don't know, it's amazing. I think it does a really good job capturing what someone might struggle with in their life, but still like giving you like that steady reassurance. If you're looking for something that's chill, that'll like help calm you down at the end of a hard day, I say watch Skip and Loafer. It's surprisingly good. Like I was really surprised because I saw the cover and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. I like slice of life, but only to a certain extent. This one was fire. So out of 10, what recommend? I'm pretty sure it's everything that I've watched lately. I think I'm about to start watching Yawamushi, that pedal anime. It's a sports anime. We'll just get into like a sports anime video eventually. I'm well overdue for one. But that's all I really want to say on the anime front. I basically just did this for fun. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, do the usual, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on all my medias. I don't post on them as much, but you're welcome to if you want to. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.